Hi, this is Kathryn Raaker of Let's Just Talk. Our guest today is JoAnn Vicknair, and she has a new book, and it's called Storytime Memaw. And, you know, it's just past Christmas now, and our guest today still has a gift to give, especially for grandparents and parents. She's a grandmother now of 10 little ones who had a great burden to share her faith with those grandchildren in a way that was fun but pointed them to God. Looking into the faces of children we love, many of us have asked the same question. How do we pass along the faith that sustains us to the next generation? God gave JoAnn Vicknair stories to tell, and the stories became her just-released book. It's a Storytime Memaw. Let's meet her. Welcome to our show, JoAnn, and how are you?
I am well, and I'm excited to be on your show today. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. You say you don't consider yourself a creative or a writer, but here you are just publishing a book. Tell us about the book and why you decided to write it.
Sure. I would love to tell you about it. It's Storytime Memaw. I tell my grandchildren this is God's book because He answered my prayer and gave me the stories over the years. My grandchildren still insist on it's Storytime Memaw. I entered the throne room of God and prayed, God, give me stories of you. They need you in their lives. Help them draw closer to you. And God answered my prayer.
Well, you know, it's amazing how God sends us these messages, and we, you know, just sometimes don't even think about them. But when you think about what you're doing, you're actually giving your face to your grandchildren. Am I correct?
Yes.
And is this a read aloud book, or can young readers read it for themselves, JoAnn?
Pretty much they can read by themselves. They may have a few issues with a few words, but my grandchildren read most of the stories on their own.
Oh, they do? How old are your grandchildren?
The ones that are reading it now are like 8 to 10.
Tell us about some of the stories you started with your book, if you don't mind.
No. Initially, I had the thought in mind, God, give me stories of maybe rebellion, peer pressure, even drugs. I would pray to help me teach them these dangers and also to show them the joy of being faithful to God. But that prayer quickly changed to, God, give me stories of you. They need you in their lives. And at that point, they started learning so much more about God's Word. It helped them to see God in everything. We speak of Jesus nearly every visit, and there are times when they amaze me with their comments.
Wow. You also shared that once you poured out your heart to God, He entered the process directly with you and gave you more stories. Tell us about that experience.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was an amazing experience. I think of it often. After that first Sunday that we were banned from attending church in March due to COVID, I was laying in bed and praying before I got up. As I prayed, I had this vision of God pouring out His Holy Spirit over our struggling church. Visually, I saw yellow rays that just completely encompassed our church. I asked, I said, God, do you want me to write a story about this? I had to get up, I ran to the laptop, and I started typing. At times, I thought I would go this way or that way, but God let me know immediately, no, go this way. And I remember thinking, oh, yeah, this is so much better. After I finished that story, I titled it, Oh, the Glory of Our God, Hallelujah. I actually tell it on my website. You can see the video and hear the story at JoAnnVicknairAuthor.com.
Wow. You know, He gives us signs all the time, but sometimes we don't see those signs. Am I correct?
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I'm going to share something with you, okay?
Okay.
Our church, and we're back in our church. We've been back in church now for probably 4 months or so, okay? But we're only allowed to give so many people, as everybody knows. And actually, when we built the second church, right, they brought in these tiles from Italy, And in the tiles, I see, believe it or not, Christ's head. And it's amazing how I can see this through these. It's really amazing. And I can see different figures in the actual tile itself. And it just, I say, God, please let me see this, when I walk into the church.
Yes.
And He's giving me a sign. And, maybe somebody else can't see it, but I can see it for some reason. But, and maybe that's the way God reaches out to me sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, many grandparents tell their grandchildren stories, but most of them don't publish them. How did that journey occur? Let's talk a little bit about it. And how long have you been doing this, actually?
Well, the stories kind of started about 8 years ago. I'll go ahead and tell you, my daughter and son-in-law had separated, and unfortunately later they divorced. I've been divorced. It is painful. And when I saw my grandchildren, I just ached for them. I truly wanted them to come to know God, to trust in Him, believe in Him, call upon Him. I wanted them to know that He loves them more than anything and that He is always at their side. I believe, if we give anyone Jesus, we've given them everything. I, as a parent, kind of regret that I did not try to instill in my daughter that very thing. I did take her to church. I did take her to Sunday school. She did was active in youth, but as far as being a parent and taking the responsibility to instill in her myself, I did not, and I just felt convicted that is what I am to do now.
Right. We can only bring, and I think about this myself all the time, okay? I have 3 children, and they're in their 50s now. And you can instill it in them. You can take them to church. You can take them to CCD or to Bible study or whatever. But the thing is, as they grow up and they become an adult, they are in charge then. And and it's really wonderful that you're doing this. But, I felt guilty for a long time about this. Mm-hmm. And then my pastor said to me and explained it to me, once they become an adult, they have free will and they have to do what they think is right? Because none of my children belong to my church today. So I felt really, really guilty. Okay? So I think, working with your grandchildren and doing it through what you're doing in writing is a wonderful, beautiful way of reaching out to your daughter in a different sense, right? And hopefully it's bringing her closer to you into them. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Absolutely.
Because if we, it's funny. I have friends that their fathers are ministers or whatever, and it was go to church, to the point of they left the church, and they don't, sometimes people don't understand why. So this beautiful thing that we have with God, okay, is just really special. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. But I also think that as a grandparent, we get to spend more quality time with our grandchildren.
That's
right.
I
know when I was working and buying groceries and paying bills and cleaning houses, I didn't have that kind of time. So I'm fortunate that I have the time not to have to be the disciplinarian and all that other, but the time just to let them talk and to kind of point out things and let them see that God is involved in our everyday life.
I agree with that. And I want, you're lucky to have your grandchildren around you. I have 16 grandchildren, and one and a half, almost 2 great-grandchildren. None of them live near me. My children don't live near me. And thank God for Zoom. Thank God for Facebook, for anything that we can reach out to them.
Yeah,
and I used to have a television show called... Yeah, I used to have a television show called Kathryn's Storybook Tree, and we're reviving that television show, by the way. So we're looking, to do things with grandparents that are authors, because I think grandchildren really want grandparents to do this with them more than ever, with the pandemic and everything else we're going through. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think it's important. Can you do me a favor, because we're going to take a short break here, but can you tell me what your website is, JoAnn, and can you also give us where you can purchase your book?
Sure. It's my website, JoAnnVicknairAuthor.com. You can purchase through me on that, or you can purchase through Amazon on that site. JoAnnVicknair.com? Correct.
Okay. And we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Back to the show. You're listening to Let's Just Talk with Kathryn Raaker.
We are back with JoAnn Vicknair and her wonderful book, and I love the title, it's Storytime Memaw, and, that's what your grandchildren call you, am I correct?
That's right. That's right. I was so tired of hearing that at times. I'm so sorry.
Well, how about ice cream? And my granddaughter's nickname is Cupcake, and my husband is Ice Cream, and I'm Popsicle.
Oh, wonderful.
How about that one? Well, that's what my granddaughter, when she was really little, she's my youngest granddaughter, and she's 10 now. And she is a doll baby. What can I tell you? Oh, nothing more special than our grandchildren, That's for sure. I really, really, truly believe that. You described your experience as rising out of God, answering a heartfelt prayer for your grandchildren, especially two of them when they were small. What is the message you wanted to get across to them? And can you share with us why you felt that so intensely?
It's because my daughter and my son-in-law were going through a divorce, and they were at this point at one home and then at another home and back over here. I just ached for them. I hurt for them. I wanted them to know that regardless of what happens in this world, God is in control. He knows where they are. He knows what they're doing, and He loves them. I wanted them to know they have that Father that will always be at their side. That's why I prayed so heavily that God would give me these stories to help them learn about things and that they would come to know Him better. I wanted them to draw closer to Him and call upon Him. In their times of pain, in their times of joy, in their times of being mad or whatever it was, I let them see that in me, and I wanted them to be a part of that.
May I ask you another question, and that is,
Sure.
Now, how long have you been divorced, and how long has your daughter been divorced?
My daughter's been divorced, I would say, roughly 7 years. Roughly 7 years. I divorced way back in the day. I'm going on 60, so I divorced probably close to 40 years ago, but then I remarried 5 or 6 years after that. Happily married a Cajun man.
Same thing for me. I have to tell you, I was miserable in my first marriage after 4 years. And God brought me someone, and we've been married for 51 years now. And He helped me raise my children.
Wonderful.
So, see, there is light after the tunnel. God does give us that, doesn't He?
He does.
Now, is your daughter dating someone or married again or what?
She's remarried. She has remarried.
Is she happy?
And she has a stepson, and they're doing okay.
Well, see, there is light after the tunnel. God does provide, doesn't He?
That He does. He really does. And the children are doing wonderful.
Right, and I think that's what's important. You know, my kids are now 50, and 51 and 52. Oh, wait a minute. 50, 52, and 53, right? I have to think about it. And guess what? They adore their stepfather. And my daughter's, and she's his biological daughter, but he never treated them like anything else but. And it was tough. I remember going through it. I'll never forget it. And I wrote my book, Elizabeth Bromwell Chronicles of an Expat Spy. Some of it's true, some of it's not. You'll see me on the cover. So I'll make sure you get one of my books. And, so because I think that's good, isn't it?
It is. It really is. And then I incorporated true stories of my family, and that really kind of blew their minds away, because they found out Memaw was a bad little girl at times, in school. And they're like, Memaw, you did that? And I said, oh, yes, I did. And, boy, did I learn from that.
Right. So how old is your oldest grandchild now?
Okay. My husband's children, he has 3. So those children range from preschool to, like, 3rd year in college.
Wow. So how many do you have all together now?
We have 10 between us. I have one daughter that has 2 children and a stepson, and then he has 3 children, and combined a total of 10 grandchildren.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's important. My daughter, when she got married the second time around, she had 5 stepchildren. And her daughter, and she had her late in life. God was very good to my daughter and brought her my granddaughter Cassie after she lost 2 children. So I am very, very blessed to have all of them, and I have one in Germany too. So you never know. Grandmother, wow. Isn't that pretty cool?
It is.
And I pray for all of them every single day. I try to reach out to them. And they know they have a very busy grandmother working too many hours, right, with radio and television, and now starting a new TV series for children again for the same type of thing that you're doing. I want kids to all have some adopted grandmother, some adopted grandfather if theirs aren't around, or if they don't have time for their grandchildren, and to be able to do a story time with them. And I think that's really important. And I'm so excited that you wrote this book. And what role do you see all grandparents having in sharing faith with their grandchildren? And what if those children are not growing up in a God-fearing home?
Well, it happens, and it is sad. But I think prayer is the answer to everything.
I would totally agree with that.
Prayer is so much, if we can teach them, and if we call upon the one who answers our prayers above and beyond anything we can hope for or imagine, they are in good hands. We feel so bad because we cannot do for them. We cannot change their lives. We cannot run their lives, but we can pray to the one that does.
We've gotten to know your heart as a grandmother of a strong faith, but you tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I've already told you I'm married to a great Cajun man. We've been married about going on 20 years. And we used to love to fish, and we fished out in the bay and on out saltwater fishing until that got a bit physically challenging. So we did sell our boat. We used to bring home the fish. I'd cook the fish the same day. It was so good. Now pretty much we just go out and enjoy all the Louisiana seafood they have, and spend a great deal of time with our family.
Well, that's where my daughter lives. She lives in New Orleans.
Oh, does she? Well,
yes, she knows. I heard you did. That's what I thought was pretty cool.
Right. I am pretty active in my church, and right now we're not attending. We did reopen and all, but then because some members had issues with COVID, we just decided to go back to the virtual. just to be on the safe side. So we're to that point again. So sad.
I had COVID, by the way, and I'm 76. And I just had a light case of it, and I did a story on my Kathryn Raaker's YouTube, where the first thing you see is me talking about it and what on World Health Day I did it, and I've already had 2 other COVID tests, and I'm negative, and I've had 2 operations for cataracts, and I'm doing great. And you can't be afraid of it. You have to protect yourself from it, but you can't let it become the plague in your mind and be so fearful. That's what I want to tell people, because if you're safe and you do what they suggest, okay, I think you're going to be fine. So what's ahead for you in the book, and are you available to share your story about the book or do storytelling events?
I am. I love bragging on God. I get excited when I can talk about my God and what He did for me. Never in my wildest dream would I believe or thought that I would be an author. As a matter of fact, I would tell people, God told me to do this, but I'm really not an author. I just did what God told me to do. And the lady at the church corrected me, and she said, well, JoAnn, apparently you are. And I thought, she's right. I am who He says I am. I teach my grandchildren, let God out of the box. He is a big God. I enjoy seeing their faces light up when I get a little emotional with the stories. I can see their little minds at work. I hope to one day do an audiobook myself. I think that would be fun.
I think so too. I've done about 7 of them, JoAnn, and I have, yes. And I encourage you to do it, and to get the right equipment or to work with somebody to do it with you, because it takes a lot of patience. And we can talk about that some other time. But we've run out of time, believe it or not, and so we appreciate your visiting with us today. But before you go, where can people find us at Storytime Memaw? And do you have a website where people can connect with you? Would you give that, please?
Sure. The book's newly released January the 5th. You can buy it at any bookstore. It is on my website at JoAnnVicknairAuthor.com. You can go on there and order it through Amazon or order it on your own through Amazon. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so very much for joining us, and don't forget to go to our website at Kathryn Raaker's Let'sJustTalkRadio.com, Let'sJustTalkRadio.com, or go to Kathryn Raaker, KathrynRaakers World.com. We'll see you soon. Thank you for joining us today on Kathryn Raaker's Let's Just Talk.